Please allow me to invite to the stage Dr. Fahad Al-Tuwajri.
My name is Fahad Al-Tuwajri. I have the privilege to moderate this session. I am a virtual society consultant. Of course, our topic here is needs and challenges in the development of professional certification exams. First of all, I would like to invite the panelists where we can start our session. And then we can have discussion and questions after the end of this session. Please, Mr. Anas Orani. Mr. Anas is an international institute. He's a director of International Institute of Business Analysis, IIBA, in the Kingdom. He's a leading team of business analysis in ILM, شركة ILM, ILM company, which core business is government service, business process re-engineering, and automation. Mainly, Anas is responsible and accountable for business analysis, planning, and monitoring. The second panelist, please, Frank Schettini. Schettini is a CIO, which is not Chief Information Officer, he's a Chief Innovation Officer. Information System Audit and Control Association, he's an officer of that. As a Chief Innovation Officer, Mr. Frank, responsible for spreadheading innovation across the organization. He brings significant experience to ISACA. In the area of strategic planning and process improvement and enterprise architecture and change management. The third panelist is Mr. Mihai Toma. Can you come to the stage, please, Mihai? Mihai Toma is the head of professional practice, MENA, at the KPI Institute. Mihai has been actively involved in the implement and design of KPI operation and functional performance scorecards. As a master trainer, Mihai has developed and delivered training across courses on selecting and documenting KPIs, managing individual performance improvement. Before I give the mic to our distinguished panelists, I would like just to highlight about some important issues. That we are here in Saudi Arabia, we bought the technology. We implemented the technology. Then we found out that we are lost in the technology. And maybe some people ask why. Because maybe sometimes we choose the wrong technologies. And we have the technology, actually, it matters to us. What matters to us the most is the human automation. Einstein, in all his lecture that he's been done in early 1900, always says, automate people before automating machine. And that's what we are in lack of. We need the human automation. If we want really to bring the technology and we want to transfer the technology, then we have to think about localizing the technology. And that will be implemented in human capital or intellectual capital. And that's what we have here, is the certification. Is it the right certification? As of our colleague here, of Mr. Sayari mentioned, that a person who had a 100 certificate and 70%, it appears to be out of his major, out of his career. So if we don't manage this type of certification, then we will suffer. It's not only the individual who will suffer, it's the whole community, the whole society. So I want please to leave the mic now for Mr. Anas to tell us about his topic, which is a new competency-based certification model and ILM Business Analysis Training Program, which they have affiliated with George Washington University.
Assalamu alaikum. I'd like first to thank CERTX for providing the opportunity to IIBA Saudi Arabia chapter to participate in this event and talk about the new competency-based certification model for IIBA. I'll talk about this point, and I'll address at the end a real experience done by Ilm Company to run a business analysis certification program for its employees. So let me start with IIBA certification model, and I'll give just a short description about IIBA. IIBA is International Institute of Business Analysis. It's a non-profit association aiming to support business analysts in the world. It was established in 2003 as a Canadian association. And the mission statement for IIBA is that we help professionals working in the business analyst role develop their skills and further their careers by providing access to unique and relevant content. So the main focus of IIBA is to promote and leverage business analysts in the world to unique and relevant content. So the main focus of IIBA is to promote and leverage business analysts in the world. In 2014, IIBA launched its 3-year strategic plan, and a fundamental part of that strategical plan was actually focusing or moving from skill-based certification into a more competency-based certification, and which actually will test the ability of business analysts to perform, to apply the experience, demonstrate ability to act in situations. So it's not only they know the concepts, they are able to apply these concepts in their daily work. IIBA relied on this framework to develop the new certification model. So they provided the competencies, the best practices, and one important thing they had is they used the community that they have to build that certification model. So IIBA actually engaged different types of stakeholders in order to build that model. The engagement started in 2014, in October 2015, and it continued till July 2016. The stakeholders were different segments of people, EEP, endorsed education providers for IIBA, chapter leaders, corporate members, even some certified people from IIBA. The end result was a 4-level certification program, which I will demonstrate in a while. And the contributing countries, it was from all over the world to get all the experience from different parts of the world. Saudi Arabia, for example, was one of those countries, and the total number of volunteers engaged in that process were 341 volunteers. And in order to run this project, IIBA actually hired PSI. PSI, actually, they did 2 things. They trained these volunteers on the process of writing exam questions or certification questions, and they managed the whole process of writing the questions. Yeah, this is the end result of the project. Today, IIBA has launched these 4 levels of certifications, starting from the top, the ECBA, the entry-level certification, which is appropriate for fresh graduates or people who don't have yet any business analysis practical experience. They can go ahead and apply for this credential, is ECBA. The next level is CCBA, which is appropriate for people who are having 2 to 3 years of experience in business analysis. The third one is CBAB, which is appropriate for 5 years experienced people. And the last one is CBATL, which is Certified Business Analyst Thought Leader, which is appropriate for those who have more than 10 years of experience in business analysis. This is just to compare these different certifications. Let me start with the CBATL because the exam is not yet released. I think it will be released within 1 or 2 months. Let's talk about the ECBA, CCBA, and CBAB. The requirements for these certifications are as follows. For ECBA, as we said, that it doesn't require any professional experience. However, in CCBA, you need to have at least 3,750 hours of business analysis experience in order to apply for that exam. And CBAB is almost double, 7,500 hours. And when we talk about professional development requirements, for ECBA, you need to have at least 24 hours. In CCBA, it's 21, and CBAB is 35. Now, when we talk about the exam for ECBA is 1 hour with 50 questions, and the focus here is based only on in the concepts, while in CCBA, the exam is 3 hours with 130 questions, and these are scenario-based questions. CBAB exam is 3.5 hours with 120 case studies questions. Last requirement is for the number of references. For ECBA, you don't require any professional references, while you need at least 2 references to apply for the CCBA and CBAB certification. Just a quick statistics about IIBA. IIBA, and this is as of January 2017. IIBA has around 30,000 members in the world, 120 chapters, 300 corporate members, and it has around 1,000 CCBA certified people, 8,000 CBAB certified, and almost 100 ECBA certified people in the world. And it has around 250 EEPs, endorsed education providers. For the recertification part, IIBA mandates that who has the certification needs to renew it each 3 years. And in those 3 years, the recipient has to accumulate 60 CDUs, continuing development units, and these can be any of the following categories: professional development, career enhancement, activities that are related to the business analysis. All of these will be counted into the recertification part. And this is just an example of the final certificate, the credential that the participant will get. Let me conclude with the BA program. I'll talk about experience done here by Ilm Company. That program was actually run by Ilm Company with partnership with George Washington University. The program targeted 50 business analysts inside the company, and it was based on 7 in-house courses that ended with an exam. And this is the curriculum that was developed for this course, for this program. So it's starting from the bottom, from a foundational course that was customized for Ilm needs. Then there are 5 core courses that the participant need to participate in and pass. And finally, there is 1 elective course that can be selected from these 4 courses. And this is the final, this is the certificate that the participant will receive at the end of the program. It's a master certificate in business analysis endorsed or accredited by George Washington University. Just finally, I want to thank our current sponsors. We as a chapter, we are representative of IIBA in Saudi Arabia. We are actually now sponsored by Ilm Company, by the Work Hub and Badr, so we would like to thank them for their support. And special thanks also to CERTX and the organizers of this event for allowing us or giving us the opportunity to speak about IIBA.
Thank you, Anas. I hope Ilm Company will maintain the security and the privacy of our information as individuals of Saudi Arabia. Thank you, Anas. The second panelist is Mr. Frank Shettini. He will discuss about the ISACA certification process and how its global approach ensure wide range of coverage and timely relevance. Second one, to move to performance-based certification for key skills.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to thank all of you for offering me the opportunity to come to Saudi Arabia. This is my first time here, and I'm very excited to be here to talk to you about what ISACA is doing in the world of certification. I've listened to a lot of the speakers earlier, and I was actually very impressed. And when you think about certification, there's many different types of certifications that are out there, and sometimes it can be confusing as to which one you should actually look to attain. So one thing I'm going to try to do today is kind of walk you through some of the key parameters associated with that. So what you see here is our purpose and promise, which is really core to who ISACA is, really helping you realize the positive potential of technology. This world is all about technology today, whether you're in IT or whether you're in a business area, everything is technology. And the question is, how do you actually deploy technology the right way and make sure it actually provides the services, has the security built in, and actually performs the functions? That's really what our mission is. Here are the different domains and expertise areas that we cover. audit and assurance, which is really our tradition. ISACA has been around for 48 years. And yes, we are celebrating our 50th year in 2 years. The planning has already started. It'll be a large celebration. I'm very excited, can you tell? Cybersecurity, which is obviously something that's near and dear to all of us, and I want to talk a little bit about how we're doing something different in that space to really help address the challenges that we face today, including the recent ransomware attack that happened. Governance, or IT governance as we call it, is obviously very critical in this day of innovation, and that is my title, Chief Innovation Officer. The more you think about innovation, you think, oh, just go throw some stuff together and put it out the door. That's actually not innovation. You spend a lot of time trying to figure out how do you make it happen. So in this day and age where technology is embedded across the enterprise, it's really important that you have a streamlined governance process so that you're managing and you're standardizing how you're doing things, but you're also pushing them through the system. So governance is really important. Risk management is everything we do. Cybersecurity is actually a risk issue. It's not an IT issue. So it's a question of how do you allocate your resources and your funding to protect the things that are most important to you. And then obviously information security. We are a global not-for-profit. We have 140,000 professionals that we serve globally in over 190 countries with over 200 chapters, literally in every country, in every continent except for Antarctica. So we are truly a global association. I'll leave this up here. Similar to other professional associations, we have we support all the hallmarks of a profession, which includes certifications, membership, thought leadership and research, which we provide for free to our members, training and education, as well as some things we've been doing recently in the whole cybersecurity field as well. Now, when we think about certifications, and I'll put up here our CISA certification, which is obviously globally recognized as the gold standard for IT audit. When you think about certifications, there's several things you really need to consider if you're going to really standardize them within your organization. One is they really should be a global standard. There are many certifications that are out there, and they also, and some of them are created in different ways. So I think it is very important that they be ISO standard-based certifications, which means that you follow a very rigorous process of how you actually create the exam, how you validate the exam. I think the earlier session, we had a very good description of how the job practice analysis function works, so I won't re-describe that to you, other than the fact that with every exam, you want to make sure that you are actually capturing all the competencies and skills that are required to perform that job professionally, accurately today. And then every 2 or 3 or 4 years, depending on the particular certification, you go back and relook at that job practice, because as we know, jobs change over time and the demands between technology as well as requirements do change. So you need to make sure that your program and your certification program actually evolves as well as industry evolves to support that. When you think about item writing, and every exam has a set of items, if you will, that an individual has to take and has to pass. Many of the simplistic approaches are someone just goes back and writes questions, and that's what ends up being on the exam. The way we do exams is completely different. We actually gather experts from around the world, and they actually put questions together. Then those questions go into a queue, which gets reviewed by another set of professionals. So what you'll see is individuals who actually create questions. Those same individuals will be individuals who will be reviewing other people's questions. Based on that criteria, and they have specific guidelines on what they can ask and what they can't ask, then that goes into a process where, let's assume it gets approved. If it gets approved, it gets into the queue where then we have a separate group that actually does quality assurance to make sure those questions are really understood in all languages. They use common words, for example. We do translate our exams into multiple different languages, but even still, we want to make sure they're common. So that's how we create a test question. However, that's still not the criteria for whether that question is actually used in the exam. So in every one of our exams, when you take our exams, what will happen is you'll have a series of questions and you'll answer all of them. Some of them will be some of those early questions, early entry questions that have not been fully validated through psychrometrics, if you will. So every new exam question that gets created is added to the exam, but it is not actually part of your final score. It only gets added to your final score when that exam question has been verified that a certain number of people pass it and a certain number of people fail it. So that's kind of the professionalism that goes into our certification process. And it's very different than others where, again, it might be somebody just writing questions and then somebody answers those questions accordingly. So that's kind of the process that I think you'll see a lot of organizations use from that perspective. Obviously, I have up here our CISA certification, which is our largest certification. Over 130,000 people have used it across the world. And earlier at the beginning, we talked about how we really want to add new students in Saudi Arabia to really start them to grow through the careers. And what we want to show here with this slide is how many people who have gotten the CISA certification, which is an IT auditor certification, have gone on to become CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, etc. So a lot of these certifications really are a path to the future, if you will. And of course, nothing would be relevant about a certification unless you put up, obviously, the average salary associated with those different certifications. And we're fortunate enough that our IT certifications tend to have very high salary ranges because of the level of requirements that are really placed on the individual and the level of responsibility that they have within organizations. I'm just highlighting one other one, which is our CISM, which is our Information Security Management certification. So separate from the one I'm going to talk about next, about performance-based testing, our CISM really is focused on information security management and what are the things you need to know to become an information security manager. And you'll see, obviously, many of the common career paths for that are CISOs and CSOs, if you will, security directors as well. So obviously, this is a certification that's fairly hot in the marketplace right now. With the certification, a certification really can't be successful unless the individual is continuously investing in himself. So continuing credits is one of the most important things you can do as part of your certification program. So in our case, we require at least 20 hours a year to maintain your certifications. Because in the end, it's not just about getting the certification, it's about continually educating yourself and coming up to speed with what the latest trends and technologies and approaches are so that you can provide more value to your organization. So with that, I'll switch gears a little bit. So most of our certifications really follow a traditional path of multiple choice, scenario-based kind of questions, if you will, because for those professions such as IT auditor and IT governance, they fit the mold. But when you think of the world of cybersecurity, doing a paper and pencil exam that says you understand what an APT threat is does not mean that you know how to mitigate an APT or a ransomware attack, if you will. So when we actually started conceptualizing the need for a cybersecurity practitioner certification, we did not go down the traditional path. We really believe the wave of the future is what we call performance-based exams. So what does that mean? Very simple. When you sit in a room to take our CSXP exam, there's no paper, there's no pad, there's no questions. You're sitting in front of a terminal, and a ransomware attack is actually happening. And we actually have built up an environment, so it is all browser-based, and it's actually true cloud implementation of real virtual machines that get kicked off for the different exam questions. There's a firewall, there's a DMZ in some cases, a web server, whatever the configuration is. And you were giving a problem statement saying you noticed a web server is missing. And you have to go through the process of identifying where what happened to the web server, what it is, and how do you change that. And then from that, you actually get the results of how you did on that particular part of the exam. That's a lot different than traditionally what you see where you sit down with a pen and paper and you try to answer questions, yes, no, or A, B, C, D, or E. So we really think that when you look at certifications going in the future, it's really important that you associate the right type of way of of testing someone to make sure they really have that level of competency. So that's what we call performance-based testing. And our CSXP is the only cybersecurity certification in the marketplace that actually uses that type of technology, if you will. With that, again, the key thing is making sure your certifications are global, that they're globally accepted. They follow ISO standards in terms of how they're created to make sure you have the high level of quality, that they're actually translated in multiple languages as the need arises, and that they really are created to meet the intent and the need of the profession itself. With that, I'll thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. It is important really in the Web Insight or knowledge-based economy that we have the right certification, because we sometimes have a lot of certification and the component of the certification doesn't fit with the demands of the markets or the society. Thank you very much. Our third panelist is Mr. Mehan Toma. As we presented before, he will be actually discussing adopting best practices in creating a certification process. And the second one, implementing ISO standards for certifying institute.
Hello, good day everyone. My name is Mihai Toma. I'm the head of professional services for the KPI Institute in the MENA region. And today I'll walk you through how we designed our certification process. So what I'd like us to have a quick discussion, or let's say quick intro into what are some of the best practices that we can deploy or we can look out to when we want to enroll in a certification course. Before we get into that, just for me to give you a bit of a background about who we are at the KPI Institute and what we do. So we're an Australian-based company. We started off in 2004, and our main focus as an organization is making sure that we're up to date in what happens in terms of performance management, strategy execution, and everything basically that's connected to these two main areas. So we operate in three main fields. First of them is research. So we do research on the topics of, let's say, balanced scorecard, strategy planning, strategy execution, KPIs. We provide training courses, both non-certification and certification as well. And I'll show you our certification courses in a moment. And we also do advisory services, meaning we help companies establish their own set of KPIs. Just in terms of background, we operate in 4 different areas in the globe. So we started off in Australia. We have an office in Romania, where I'm from, by the way. We have an office in Dubai, here for the MENA region, and we also have an office in Kuala Lumpur. So you get an idea of where do we operate in, and you have some other of our key figures here present. Now, to come to the point of the discussion, and just to show you a list of what our main certification courses, here you have a list here, we have a number of 12. And as you can see, most of them are or revolve around the world of strategy and performance. And these are the courses that we consider to be, let's say, the core courses: strategy and business planning, KPIs, performance management, and individual performance management. Now, the idea is, how did we end up, or how did we create a certification process for this set of courses? Now, something that we need to understand when we talk about certification, right? It's not just about the idea of getting one person certified, but it's also making sure that the people or the person that attends the course actually gains knowledge, right? That he learns, not just he attends a course, he takes some marks, and then that's it, he gets certified. The idea is to try to ensure that learning occurs. Now, in order to make sure that, let's say, we're up to date in terms of what are the latest findings in terms of, let's say, scientific research that's been done in the field of teaching, of education, of learning and training, right? Here we have some examples of, let's say, studies done on this particular part. Now, most studies tell us, let's say, 2 main things, which are strictly related also to the learning part and the certification part of attending a training course. Now, the first part is that testing helps with transfer of learning. Right? So that's one other idea, not just behind the certification test, but by doing, let's say, tests throughout the training course itself. And that it helps us with strengthening short-term memory, as well as something that's called active retrieval is one of the best ways that we can ensure we memorize what we actually learn. Now, that active retrieval is basically after a set of time that you're asked questions that make you retrieve the information that you've learned. And we try to adopt this type of practice in our training courses. We have sets of quizzes that we do before each session that we correct at the end of the session. So this active retrieval is something that we've embedded in all of our training courses. Now, for the last part, something that also plays a role, right? Especially a lot of the speakers that came on stage, they talked about the importance of technology. Right? But technology is something that's also important to be utilized in the training part, even the certification part. Right? So again, a few studies show us that the creation of a blended learning environment. Blended learning basically means, to put it very briefly, that you combine different techniques or different ways in which you try to pass on the knowledge from the instructor through to the trainee. Right, so blended learning basically means that you try to mix a traditional classroom-based approach with elements that are, let's say, online learning-based. From this, let's say, learning these lessons from what the latest scientific research shows us, what was the next step that we adopted was to see what are the organizations that, let's say, have the best practices in offering certification courses. So normally when you say certification, one of the first names that comes to mind is ISO, right? So I think everyone has heard of ISO. Actually, my colleague earlier mentioned about the importance of ISO, so at the end of the presentation, I'll show you the ISO standard that we're currently implementing, and that's specifically dedicated for bodies that offer certification through training. And the second one, and something that I got let's say, or I had the opportunity to experience myself, is an organization that is called ATD, Association for Talent Development. They were formerly known as ASTD. Now, they're an American-based company, and they focus specifically on the learning and development part. Now, a big group of our trainers, our internal trainers, had the chance to attend one of their certification courses, which is called the ATD Master Trainer. In case anyone is interested in attending a training course for trainers, I highly recommend this program. It's one of the best training courses that I personally have attended. Now, what we've learned by attending this particular course is that the people at ATD, what they've done is they created an entire certification process, not just an exam at the end, but there was a process of certification. Now, this process involves three main stages. The first one they call fundamentals or pre-course stages, meaning you're involved in an online community where you get access to materials that you can go through. You have a test after you go through those materials, and you can also engage in a forum with other people that will attend the training course. After you complete this stage, you actually go to the training course itself, let's say traditional classroom training. In that case, it has 4 days. Our own training courses are 3 days long. But the idea is that you attend the training course. At the end of the training course, you will be again evaluated. Here they have both a written exam and a practical evaluation. And the last part is that this isn't the last step, right? You also need to go into an elective course, meaning you choose a course, an online course that's connected with the area that you've done the training course in. And only once you go through all these 3 stages, you then receive the certification. And based on this particular practice is how we've designed our certification process ourselves. So as you can see, if you take a look at the screen in front of us, we have the 3 main areas. We have pre-course, the core course itself, and then post-course assessment. Now, why is this important? One, as I mentioned earlier, it's linked to the blended learning environment that stimulates, or that, let's say, gives people another way for them to retrieve this knowledge. Secondly, it's important because once the training course finishes, and I think that's, let's say, an experience that most people here have experienced, when the training course finishes, everything goes back to normal. It's like entropy, right? Things go back to their original state. So we found out that if people don't have, let's say, an incentive or something that stimulates them to go and apply what they've learned in the training course in their actually day-to-day job, they don't really remain with that much of the knowledge that they learned during the course itself. So that's why we have this three-stage process. Before the course, as a preparation, trying to bring people at, let's say, a similar level. Then you go to the actual classroom training course. There you take the exam. After you pass the exam, then you have a set of post-course activities which you need to go through. And here we have a, let's say, a more detailed presentation of what are all of the steps that you have to go through in order to receive the final certificate. And to close off the discussion, because I mentioned I'm going to bring this topic up, is related to the ISO part, right? So one best practice was ATD, which we incorporated. The second one, which we are now in the process of adopting, is the ISO certification. Now, this is ISO 17024, and this is particularly dedicated for personnel certification programs or for companies that offer certification programs for individuals. Now, what's the main role of this part, right, is that by having this accreditation in place, right, you validate your entire process of certifying individuals. And not just the exam itself, but everything that goes before or after the exam itself. It also helps in creating, let's say, a structure and a governance in terms of how this process should be, say, regulated internally. And one of the, let's say, main benefits that I see, not just for the training providers themselves, but also for the people that attend these types of ISO certified training courses, is that this is one of the main stepping stones towards creating certifications which are not just nationally accepted in some areas, but they are also internationally accepted. Right? So that also helps the individuals who get a certain certification that if they move to another country, this is still something that is considered to be accepted and relevant. Now, that being said, I'd like to thank you, all my previous speakers, and thank you for attending, and I wish you a very nice day ahead.
Thank you, Mihai. Actually, migrating from real society to virtual society, we are suffering from a lot of constraints and challenges. And not only one session that can explain that way. We are suffering from cyber terrorism, cyber attacks, and security is so influential in this situation. What is the certification has to be important and has to be raised in order to diversify in the line of training and in line of human capital and human automation. So thank you very much for all the panelists. Now we leave the floor for the audience and participants if they have any questions, please.
My name is Mohammed Al-Bakr from Salim Johnson Control Training Center. The aim of professional certification to increase or to share knowledge. This is what all of us that agree about it. But I have there's one challenging that we face it, especially here in Saudi Arabia. I'm talking about, which is the language, the Arabic. Most of certification, professional certification, that in English. But if we go, there is a lot of people, a lot of employees that they are smart in their role, in their job, but they want to increase their knowledge, but unfortunately that they cannot speak English or they cannot write or they cannot go to exam. So my question is, can we see this professional certification an exam provided in Arabic in the future, especially with 2030, the vision?
Thank you for the questions. If I understand you correctly, the question is, can you have, obviously these certifications are important. Can we have them in other languages? Because obviously not everyone speaks English, the people who are specialists, if you will. And thank you for that question. And you're absolutely correct. That's one thing that we at ISACA have taken very seriously. And we do translate our exams into 13 languages. The only one we don't translate at this stage of the game is the cybersecurity one because it's fairly new, and a lot of cybersecurity is in English these days, and a lot of the tools are in English as well. So at the appropriate time, we probably will look at that as well, but I think we're very sensitive to the fact that certifications are a global need, and to provide a global service, we have to do it in the language of the individuals who are actually the professionals. It's not all about, speaking English. So you're absolutely right. So we do translate the CISA into 13 languages, and we constantly, part of what my team does is we evaluate what the market need is and to see how many people we potentially have in those markets, and we'll translate it into that language as well. The other way of extending that is we have volunteers around the world, and in some cases, so for example, in Japan, we have a very passionate volunteer group, and they actually worked very closely with us to translate actually most of our IP, our research, as well as the certifications and other documents into Japanese, into kanji, if you will, because of their passion and interest. So it really is a partnership. So if there's individuals, here, for example, that want to work on that, that's something that we would be very interested in discussing and partnering.
Actually, if I may add to it, it is an issue of supply and demand. And if there is a big demand, certainly many companies, many private sectors will try to satisfy the customers. But I think for the time being, the chapters and the organization here in Saudi Arabia in particular, and Arab world in general, they're supposed to really make these translations in order to bypass this information to the requesters and try to make it as easy as possible. But in general, I believe the supply and the demand dictates the Arabization or not.
Being a volunteer group, the IIBA Saudi chapter put this in mind actually from the first day. And we are working now because the IIBA certification is all based on the business analysis body of knowledge, which is the reference for all business analysts. And it's in English language and has been translated to different languages, not Arabic. One of the goals that we are working on today is actually to Arabize that body of knowledge to ease the certification process for all people here in Saudi Arabia.
Then I thank again all the panelists. It was fruitful and informative that we had to talk about the challenges which faces the certification. I wish we can meet you again in future things that it could benefit the Saudi market. And I wish you had a very good time in this session and the previous session. Thank you.